Well, what do you think, guys? What's the next kind of topic of conversation? We've all kind of given out our flavors and what we're about. I know that there's definitely things that we could all dive into that are still probably things that we haven't mentioned in our origin stories or
Oh, hell
upcoming
yeah.
things. I
Well,
know.
let's touch on the different components of making a podcast, right?
Okay.
So let's
Yeah.
start with, how did we convince our players to do this, right? We talked about that a little bit individually, but it's a big commitment it's a big commitment to go into an AP, but it's even bigger commitment to say, all right, we're making this a podcast, and now we have to play every week and regularly. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it has to count every time we play. What were some of those conversations like with your crews?
I'll go first on this one.
Yeah, get it.
We started, I would say, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, playing remotely over the internet because several of us had moved away from the city that we had all met in originally. But we played the same time every week. We always have the same game that we've had for the last 7 years. For us, it was stupid easy. We just hit the record button, and David, one of my players, does the editing. And that's it. That's all we did. I know that sounds really easy, and that's probably...
Well, we'll start with the easiest. That's
right. Yeah. No, it's and I'll get it real quick. I'm going to give props to David, who is the guy who edits our episodes. I don't dive into editing like these guys do, but I let David take the helm on that because, and this is at literally no offense to anybody here or any podcast out there, David doesn't listen to any other actual play podcast, period.
Wow.
He doesn't at all.
Ruined it for him?
I love the fact that he puts our group's slant on it without trying to emulate anybody else.
I mean, that's a sacrifice that you're making, David, because there's so much good content out there, but it's the only way to keep your viewpoint pure, and I respect that, man.
Yeah.
Good work there.
The real Rodney Mullen approach to it.
Yeah.
I like it. Rodney Mullen's the best. Who do you want to roll the die or just whatever?
Yeah, I'll go. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, we had already started recording our sessions for ourselves, and as that's going to go, we have a group of like 10 to 12 people that are in various games, like on our home front. And so, I mean, that's how we were getting through so much 5e content, is that at one point I was running like 4 games a week, and it was really way too much. I would not recommend.
Crazy.
My first advice that I'm going to give on GM Happy Hour is to not run 4 games at one time every week.
Just don't do it. Just don't. Unless you want them all to be
Well, unless you're getting like paid for it or something, like don't do it because it's just too much. But anyway, so we also did not have the problem of not having people to play with. I had the fortunate problem of like, all right, what group is going to play what game and that kind of thing. And that also kind of helped us figure out who would be the best voices and personalities for a podcast. And so when we moved to Starfinder, I was like, okay, Heath, Zach, Emily, Josh, and John, I think you guys should play Starfinder. They're the ones that were the most eager to learn a new system anyway, which works out good. And I think that probably just works in tandem with being the most into the hobby, which makes them much more ideal to pick to be on a podcast because there's enthusiasm and everything. And Heath and I talked a lot about, we've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. In fact, we tried to do a completely different style podcast about 2 or 3 years before we launched the actual play, where we were reviewing and recapping Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah, I've heard about this one.
No, well, you would until Game of Thrones decided to shit the bed, and around season 7. Around season 7, it was funny. Our best like audio quality season because when we first started, honestly, we were like sitting around one iPhone just talking about Game of Thrones, like Game of Thrones, but like eventually we got some segments worked out, and we kind of got like some structure to it, and we got microphones, and we're like, oh, we're going to do this. And by the time we got like everything all kind of squared away, season 7 happened, and in every episode of that is us just getting more and more and more and more bitchy. And
Raise the podcast.
Yeah,
Can I go back and listen to that, Adam? You the link that
you
to me.
can.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, it's out there if you can find it, but
What's it called?
but it's called Southern Tomfoolery.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Oh, is that why your plays?
Yeah, that's why we're Southern Tomfoolery Plays, but we've now kind of gone back to just Southern Tomfoolery because it's a better name. But anyway, yeah, it was. We realized that nobody wanted to listen to, 4 grown men bitch about a TV show. You know what I mean? And so we decided to scrap that. And then about a year later, after listening to some actual plays like The Adventure Zone and Critical Role, all the big ones in Glass Cannon, we're like, we can do that. We've already been kind of doing it. And so now I'll just put a little bit more extra effort into it and really try to make it something cool. And so we played the first 3 sessions of Aeon Throne. Heath and I already with the intent of like, this is going to be the podcast, but I just recorded it like we normally do. And then I super edited it and gave it to the rest of the players. I was like, y'all, this sounds pretty good. I think we should just go ahead and launch this as a podcast. So I gave them some finished product to hear.
So you're saying you bamboozled your own crew just like you bamboozled us on Hideous Tomfoolery.
Yeah.
You were like,
I've got
what
a
if
pattern.
I just make this sound good? And like, let's see what the chemistry is like. They're going to want to record this.
Respect, man. That's awesome.
I love
The
it.
pieces are falling into play.
You could really see the sign of a true at heart GM when you're perfectly fine with just fucking your players over mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
It's a requirement in what we do. So,
Yeah, especially if you're going to show that to other people, because that just makes it more interesting.
yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. What about you, Griff?
So they don't call us an actual play, actually drunk Pathfinder podcast for nothing. So most of the conversation about turning this into a podcast came between me and getting one of my players on my side as like a close confidant. And guess what? It was Steve, the other person that drinks as much as me. Not that Brooks doesn't, but Steve was always around. And so we talked about this for 8 months. We talked about making this a podcast. We talked about plans. The first time me, Steve, Emily, Haley, and Brooks played together was doing this podcast. And I had wanted to play with them for so long because we'd been friends. We became great friends from a mutual love of Pathfinder. Steve and I worked together. That was the only connection between the 5 of us. And we talked about Pathfinder, and the more we talked, the more I wanted to play with all of them. I've been playing with Haley, for Haley and I have been together for years. So I've been playing with her for as long as I've been playing, but I hadn't played with the other 3 more than like a one-off. So got Steve on my side and then started to one by one bring the others in. I was always thinking like, what an interesting perspective, guys. Like we can bring like 2 couples onto a show and see if we don't kill each other. It's been 100 episodes and we've come close, but no one has died yet.
I mean,
Right.
I've got to admit, like when I first found out that there was 2 couples, I was like, man, they are playing with fire.
That was
You know,
my
but, like,
first thought too.
But
Yeah.
wow, I mean, like it really gives it its own unique vibe, and a kind of, despite being such a blue podcast, we'll say, it has a wholesome quality to it, because of that, I think, and that kind of permeates throughout. So
Yeah, there's a pretty strong love between the entire cast on our show, and
Right.
We've been friends for a very long time. So I'm glad this has given us the opportunity. A lot of you have said like, yeah, we've been gaming together, turned it into a podcast. Both of you said that, It's not like we had a lack of groups. Both of us have fantastic groups that we play with. We play home games with.
Separately.
Yeah, but we played separately. We had never played together. And so I really thought that this podcast was an opportunity for us to all play in a game and force us to be consistent with it. And it worked. I did not expect this to go past like 10 episodes, but it worked. And everybody realized that, like, hey, this is for real, like something that like I never thought we'd be able to produce. Like, none of us have an audio background. None of us have an editing background. None of us have a creative background. And so when we started making the show and it started to pick up steam, it became very real to us that, like, hey, this is a special campaign. Like, this is awesome that we can do this, and let's just keep doing it. I'm blessed, unlike some of you, that I'm a player in like 3 other campaigns. So I come to it with the player mindset a lot of times. That's how I do a lot of my GMing. I'm very used to both sides of the table. And because of that, I think it gives me a little bit more play when I'm trying to figure out how they're going to come after it as a GM to a group that he's never GM before. And so that's one of the things I love about our show is that it's completely unique to all of our at-home games, and I think every game is. I mean, you guys have GM'd a ton of games, as have I. You know, every group is very different. We kind of lucked out on our group dynamic. I'm not going to say that I didn't expect us all to gel, because I know we're all best friends in real life, and I know we can all rag on each other, and I know especially like Haley and Emily can rag on me and Brooks. So I knew it was going to be fun. But I never in a million years thought we'd be like recording our 100th episode and like where we are right now. Because at the beginning it was so like, let's put this together. Let's put it out there. Let's see.
Well, you did it. You're at episode 100. So
I was going to say, man, it's obviously worked so far.
Yeah. You know, I kept crawling and it kept working.
Yeah, it actually surprised me. I didn't know that you guys like hadn't really played together until the first episode of what you did.
Yeah, we played a couple of one-shots, and I ran them as their characters, and we recorded it. We never released it. I think Eric is on the chat. Eric might have been the only other person that got to listen to our Mists of the Mwangi playthrough with like the main cast at level 1, playing through that society scenario. I mean, it wasn't good. It wasn't good, but that was the first time we actually like recorded together, and you could definitely tell like in the early days that we were like mic shy, like not used to being in front of a mic. The thing I am really excited for with this GM happy hour is that we all have such different tables. Like we're coming from 2 people that play almost 100% in person at a table, me and Allard, and then 2 people that play a ton. And I'm not saying 100%, but I know, Adam, most of your play is electronically. And so we have entirely different table atmospheres, and it's going to be fun to discuss that, I think.
True. That's just a big contrast just in and of itself, just playing together around a table all in person and having the ability to separate yourself from that space and still have a dynamic feel from your group.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of different perspectives that we can tap into here for sure.
I like that.
Allard, tell us how you tricked your boys into doing a podcast.
Okay. So sophomore year of college, Michael, who is Elion Thresh in our podcast, he kind of drums up a group together to try to play some TTRPG stuff. And we're like, D&D, and he goes, no, Pathfinder. So through a mutual friend, she taught us like how to build characters and stuff. And Michael eventually took over the Rise of Rune Lords campaign, Rise is the first one.
Yeah, that was the first official Paizo.
Boom, Rise. It's the one we played. We like fucked around in Sandpoint for like 3 years and didn't really progress. Yeah, so we didn't really go with the story, and it took us a long time to do stuff, and we did a bunch of other stuff. We like built our own like house, and
I promise our podcast is good.
And at first, that the Rise was actually GM'd by someone else, our buddy Wyatt, who also lives with me now. And eventually, Wyatt wasn't around to do that, and Michael took over the role of GM. And a couple years had passed. We kind of played sporadically. Then once we all moved to Minneapolis area, we tried to like make it a point to like hang out because we were all living in 3 different places. So it's like, let's come together and do something. And playing Pathfinder happened to be the thing that was easy to bring everybody together to do. And basically once we were consistently playing that, I think was about the time I was like, yo, let's do a different campaign. Let's record it. Because around that time, Kyle and I had started an audio production company, and that's why we have equipment and stuff to do it with. So we kind of started equipment first, and then once we had people that we were around that were dedicated to playing every week, that's when we completely changed campaigns and started recording it. Because I started a desk job, and I was just obsessing over all the podcasts that I was listening to and wanting to do that because I started out like mixing and editing and producing music in school, and eventually I had some friends that were in the film department, so I started doing sound for film and stuff like that, and I was like that was really fun. I like the element of in helping enhance a story with audio quality and sound design and stuff like that. And not having someone making a film next to me anymore, I was like, this podcast seems to be the next step from what I enjoyed doing into something that is similar, and I don't need to have somebody with thousands of dollars in camera equipment and lighting equipment and lenses and all that stuff to show off a story. We already had all of the pieces to facilitate the story and to share it. So at first I wanted to be like, all right, everybody's in kind of a binging phase right now. You got like BoJack Horseman dropping the whole season at once. Let's try and record a whole book and then drop it all at once. And then we'll record another book and then drop it all at once and see how it goes. And once we actually had book 1 like recorded, I realized that it was going to take me 1,000 hours to get all that shit together to release all at once.
Yep.
So that's when we kind of shifted gears and we're like, let's we'll drop 3 at the first time, but then we'll just do 1 a week and slowly build upon and use the backlog.
So let me ask you this, Allard. That's an interesting like dichotomy that you've set up for yourself, because you as a GM, you edit all the episodes, right?
Yeah.
So you as a GM have this mindset of what's going on presently in your campaign, which is like a whole book ahead of what's out. So as you're editing it, you have to like kind of reset to that,
what I'm doing.
Yeah, to that thing. And what is that like? I mean, because that seems so foreign to me in the way my brain works and like how I could keep it together. So I'm really curious of how you manage that.
Well, starting out, like I would edit the episode, just get like an edit of it with no extra sounds or anything. Like the week after, the week we recorded it, I would try to get an edit done by the time we recorded the next episode, so everyone would have a chance to like remember what happened, because my guys don't take the best notes, and I'm going to call you out right there. Last episode was a little bit better.
If my group didn't have Emily, we'd be the same way.
I know, I'm going to call out my crew too, man. This is a crew call out now.
Take notes.
Yeah, like I
take notes because I don't.
I think that's going to be a thing for happy hour, crew call outs. And so this is a crew call out. Take notes, motherfuckers.
Do it. It helps.
Throw shade while you're not all here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. But where was I before the note call out? So I would
Take
edit
notes,
them.
dude.
I would edit them a week. The week we recorded them, I just had the idea in mind that I wanted to get our own music recorded and throw in sound effects because I had a whole library of Foley sounds from when I was working on people's short films. I think I only worked on two student short films, and then like one girl who was out of college, but I met her through people that I knew in college, and so I had just a bunch of stuff at my disposal, and I was like, well, I guess the only thing I need is magic sounds, and I just found a video game bundle for that was like royalty free and stuff like that. So I once we had the whole book done, and I was like, okay, it took me another 2 times as long as the episode to add in all these extra sounds. That's when I realized that we were going to have to go to the record or release one at a time once a week, just to stretch things out and not make it feel like I had everything on my shoulders at once, even though it's
that is a significant burden to put on yourself of editing.
I thought it would
and
be
releasing
cool,
a whole
but it
book.
wasn't cool. I put it off for like an extra month just because of how uncool it was. But I think your question was more like, how do you go about like recording something where your release schedule is so far behind?
Yes, you're right.
And I guess at first it was kind of there's some disconnect between what I was telling and what I was listening to. But once we got back we took a break after recording the whole book to like figure out how we wanted to release and like set up socials and figure out how to release and all the logistics behind it. And then, but at that point I still had to go back and put sound effects and music into all the episodes. So as we were recording episode like 23, I was putting all the sounds and stuff into episodes 1 through 3 and kind of remembering things to maybe spice up and add back in at this later episode. So in a way, I understand where it could feel like it would be a jumbled mess, but it was kind of helpful
it's not.
being reminded of it.
It's not a mess. That's why I was asking, like, how do you do it? How do you do it? You know,
it comes out really good, man.
I just have quality sounds and equipment, and I've spent money to learn how to put them together in a way that doesn't make it sound bad, I guess.
Well, it's just having that double layer of like timeline existence is not an easy it's not an easy task to accomplish. So kudos to you for being able to like maintain separate focus on what's the release story versus the story. Now, that's awesome that you can then, as a result of that, enhance your story that you're telling to your players, because you are like getting to tap into some shit that's you get to look like a badass. Oh, I'm foreshadowing 30 episodes ahead, motherfuckers. Like
it's a good time to throw a cutscene in, so I can exposit some stuff. It's good.
Yeah, I use editing as my GM prep.
Yeah, I'm bad at taking notes, so having to hear it again like 3 times really helps solidify what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like the 8-month prep process before we even released it, like I've storyboarded this entire campaign 3 times over.
Really?
And that's how I run through this. Like,
so you're set through book 6 of kind of a general.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I read all the book. I mean, the 8 months was a month of me reading it, and then the rest of it was like, hey guys, I really need you to make a character. Wait 2 weeks. Hey guys, like it'd be really cool.
Crew call out. Crew call out.
And they finally did.
Characters.
They finally did. And I had all of that time to work stuff in and to think about how that was going to work. That I haven't like gone back to the old episodes to pull it in, because I have just like a master doc of here's here's where I'm going with this. Here's my drunken ramblings for 8 months. So like part of the prep is putting that together, but I think that it's definitely a different style thing between all of us, which I absolutely think is like fun to explore. Like I won't do any of the new Paizo shit because I won't do anything without reading all 6 books and completely and taking months to storyboard all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I'm way different in my style from all 3.
And I knew you especially would be
know,
because you love the improv piece, and I love the improv piece with my players, but I love to know where the story is going with them and their backstory and how they're tied in.
And you know, part of my style is just, man, it's just by the seat of my fucking pants. At 100%. And you know, I'll tell you what, it was nerve-wracking to like when we decided that we were going to start recording. I was like, fuck, I don't like, I'll read the books and I'll review what we're going to do, you know, in a single session a couple of days beforehand, and I'll have okay, I think David's going to do this. I think Ted's going to do this. Like, I think I get an idea of what I think my players are going to do within their characters, you know, constraints. And then I just try to like get that idea in my head beforehand, and then just come night, you know, throw 6 shots of whiskey in me, and then we just see what happens. I was really nervous going into it, thinking, oh, now all of my actual fuck ups and inconsistencies are going to be on recording.
All my ums and uhs.
Yeah.
That's a whole different topic.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's it's one of those things where I think with when you're talking about, and I'm so glad that we're doing this, and we've already been talking for 51 minutes, guys.
Yeah. It's been quick.
I knew this was going to fly.
I mean, happy hour is more than an hour everywhere I've ever been.
True story.
Yeah. I mean, I can't get drunk in a happy hour if it's only an hour.
Yeah, that's a fail. That's a fail.
Dude, I finished my drink like 20 minutes ago. I need to go get a refill. We should take a 5 at
GM happy intermission.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, everybody go get a drink. That's what we're gonna do. Everybody go get a fresh drink. I could use one.
This is a good.
You could use one.
Point.
Everyone could use one.
We're gonna pause here. Those in the chat, think about if there's something you want us to like touch on in this first episode.
Try to keep it towards like the origin, the themes, you know.
Yeah, like more introductory stuff, because I think, you know, we're going to take topics in future versions of this and really dive into them. But here, I mean, we're just kind of shooting the shit about maybe our different styles, maybe our different groups, maybe where, you know, where we all started out.
Yeah, we're feeling it out right now. So,
all right, so we're going to go get drinks. You guys come up with questions and we'll be right back.
Ooh, are we back?
We're back.
We're back here. What's up, all you purveyors of plot, you savants of story, you tyrants of TTRPGs?
That was good.
That was well done, Allard.
He's got a gift.
Good.
He's got a gift.
Yeah, there it is.
That was good. Take
I've been thinking about
Allard.
it for a couple days. I had a couple in the back of the head. So yeah, we want to answer some questions, and it sounds like Adam's been keeping track of them. So what do we got, boy?
All right, so the first one comes from Adventurum. I believe that's a min-maxed player.
David?
Yeah. All right, so he asked, why Paizo over Wizards? And I almost didn't want to answer this question, but there is we can't deny that all 4 of us are Paizo podcasts, and all 4 of us have chosen to do a podcast with Paizo published material. And so I think it's worth asking that question. So Tyler, I'm going to make you start us off.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's your player.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It is my player. Oh man, how do I'm trying to think if I want to be, PC about this or not, but I don't think I'm going to. Wizards lost my trust. Wizards lost my trust when they jumped from 3.5. And you know what?
fair.
There's a couple of things that I will do that I'll give Wizards credit for. I'll give them credit for 5e. Not necessarily because I enjoy the system. I don't. It's not my favorite by a long shot, but they made it accessible enough that our hobby has spiked tremendously because of them.
Good at marketing.
Yeah, I mean
they're really good at that. That's for
Aren't
sure.
they owned by Hasbro now?
Well, they've been owned by them for a little while. Yeah.
But when it really comes down to it, me and my players are crunchy motherfuckers.
Well, you're the rules podcast.
Yeah, we didn't expect any less from you. Were you going to be a rules podcast in 5e?
What the hell are we going to talk about?
Not
It's
when
5
none of them are
episodes long.
established for real.
Right. The first rule of 5e is there is no rules, right?
Yeah, right.
You're the GM. You are the rules.
Right.
I think another thing that I really enjoy Paizo for is that, boy, those guys pump out content. Paizo pumps content like no one else, and
it's quality.
Yeah, it's always quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
expensive.
Granted, not every AP matches every table, right? Like I'll even use my guys as an example. When we heard about Extinction Curse, we had originally planned on playing Age of Ashes after our Fall of Plague Fall of Plague Stone.
Fucking say it. Thank goodness you swerved.
Happy hour, y'all.
Yeah.
Give me your life.
Fall of Pain Stone.
Tell me about it, right? When we heard about Extinction Curse and that the players are all part of a circus, we all leapt on that shit because we're all a bunch of fools. We don't hide that, and we love that about ourselves. Whereas on the flip side, one of the newer APs that's coming out soon for 2nd edition, Agents of Edgewatch, which very specifically seems to take place. Now, of course, it's not fully released, so I don't know, but seems to specifically take place in Absalom, which is the largest city in Golarion, is just too lawful for my players. I don't actually think, and they might contradict me here, but I don't think that they would enjoy a 6-book campaign playing lawful characters.
Yeah. I mean,
it
is kind of a restrictive idea, right? With that, but like for those that want to do that, it's gold,
For sure.
But for anybody else, it's like, it's the same thing with like the Hell's, is it Hell's Vengeance?
Oh, Evil Party, baby.
Like,
Started.
That's gonna appeal to a certain table, but not all tables.
Mine.
Right? Yeah. Duh.
My table.
Idiot left.
Right.
Okay, well, so you choose Paizo because of good content and crunchy rules.
I love the crunch, man.
All right. Allard, why Paizo over Wizards? I think you've already answered this.
We as a group haven't played D&D together. So I think the reason that Michael had like told us no, we're not going D&D, we're going Pathfinder, is because that he had already started listening to GCP and was already kind of familiarizing himself with those rule sets. But I think that because now I've consumed some D&D content of like Critical Role and Dimension 20. Dimension 20 is the one that I actually like continue on. I think that at this point, like Pathfinder, a 2E is going to get there eventually, but like Pathfinder 1E, there's just so many options of what you can build a character to be, and I don't have no problem with the amounts of rules because they come out and say use as many or as few as you want. And if I want,
it's an important thing to note. Like you don't have to use every rule of Paizo systems if you don't want a crunchy rules system.
Unless you're on the Min-Max podcast, in which case,
well, then you have to use every.
You better fucking use all.
It's all on the table.
But yeah, if you want to figure out how your PC is going to go through a library, we have rules on how efficiently they can go through that library, and that's nice to be able to pull on when your character decides to go there like on the spot. And I think that just the breadth of the content and rules that they have allows for some more dynamic gameplay as far as like actually like playing the mechanics and figuring out how to progress a story through mechanics instead of just being like, oh yeah, you know this, or you found that book you're looking for, that kind of stuff. And then I also really liked, I kind of fell in love with just like the lore of Galarian, and I haven't, I don't know for sure because I haven't delved into much more than like homebrew D&D, but do they have the kind of like
their lore is so.
Here's a setting guide book.
Well, they have lore, but it's like so incongruent with itself. You know what I mean? Like, it's not well organized because they're trying to maintain lore from first edition. You know what I mean? And they're now in 5th edition, and like so they have this. They're too afraid to like hard reset the lore, you know, and they need to do that. That's 5e. The best step that they could take would be a hard reset of the lore.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And like, yeah, it can still be in Forgotten Realms, but it's like we need to pull this together into some sort of cohesive thing. You know what I mean? That you know,
the draw of having a whole world that has been at least partially thought out, and there are messages and bits of story and bits of development within there to find is much more attractive to me as someone who GMs and somebody who plays to try to suss out that lore.
Well, I want to answer this question as I think the only person here who's actually played Wizards D&D. You know what I mean? Because 3.5 was not Wizards, correct? It was TSR.
Still Wizards.
Oh, okay.
It was still Wizards, but it
was not when 3 started. It might have got bought by Wizards during 3rd edition and 3.5, but like their first contribution to D&D was 4E as a company. You know what I mean? Like
officially, yeah.
Yeah. And so like 4E was a miss, you know, and then 5E, despite all its shortcomings, is a success. But the reason why we as players who came into it through 5E shifted away is because it just has a hard low ceiling. You know what I mean? Like for us, it has a very low ceiling. Like once you master it, like all the classes feel so samey. You know, like a fighter is a fighter, you know, a druid is a druid. Like it's just all kind of like real cookie cutter. Then add on top of that, recently they've made this decision to go back to black and white maps. And for my group, and I'm only going to speak for my group, color maps are important for us because we play online. And so our immersion is a big part of that. The maps are a big part of that experience, you know, and like they had an amazing artist doing really, really good detailed colored maps that were exciting to be on a computer screen. You know what I mean? Like there is a difference between playing online and at home. And at home, if you're drawing your maps, I get that the black and white maps are easier to recreate, you know, but like for us and how we're playing the game, the tools that we were using to play the game, their choice to do that was a huge step back for us. You know, like we weren't excited about getting in Roll20 and playing on a sketched out black and white map. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, their insistence on releasing books that were trying to cross tie in their products with magic and everything, it all just felt very non-connective to the players, you know, or at least the type of players that we were. And Paizo, the more we dug into Paizo, they're like, Paizo's not perfect, but they are listening to their player base. And you can tell that the people that create these adventures and these books are players themselves who want all the fun toys to play with, you know, and Paizo presents that, you know. And as I said before, they made a sci-fi version of their game.
Fuck yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know,
And-
5e had years on them to do that, and they didn't, you know.
Well, and they tied it directly into the lore.
Yeah, it's so great.
And like something that I don't know is we came across a creature just within the last episode that we dropped that is in Dead Sons. So they're
Nakata?
yeah.
Oh boy.
But
Did it lay eggs in you?
Spoilers.
Oh boy. Look out.
But yeah, so like just magnifies the fact that they're better at connecting their lore together, even through different editions and a completely different game, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about art real quick? One of the biggest things, like when Paizo dropped first edition, when they like first dropped it, Wayne Reynolds doing all of their art was the best choice. Like picking up Wayne Reynolds to do all the bestiary art and all of the core rulebook art. I love that man's style, and
That's
it
really
seems to like depict the flavor and the feel of Paizo so well.
You know what though? I've loved
like
as
gritty
much as I love
anime.
Wayne Reynolds, like I've loved the new artists that they've been bringing in for the newer stuff.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I mean,
They're
it's
really
just-
selling that 2e with some good
yeah.
art.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think the company has an eye, you know, if we're talking art, an eye for not only talent, because everybody they bring in is very talented, but also for artists that maybe not share the same style, but share a similar style and can portray the stuff in that kind of not necessarily classic Wayne Reynolds style, but in a way that meshes with it well.
We go back to cohesion.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We go back to cohesion.
Yeah. So when I
And-
talk about Paizo, I think I'm gonna because you guys have covered so many awesome points, I'm gonna take a different slant at it. And this is you're gonna hear me come in here a couple times as the veteran podcast GM, not the veteran GM, but I think a big part about choosing Paizo for a podcast is that there are 500,000 5e podcast actual plays out there.
Preach.
And there, Jason Lillis, look him up. He is in all of our Discords, but he's put together every single Paizo podcast that has been on the radar for more than 2 weeks, right? And that list
man.
is still like sub 100. You
Mhm.
can still find an adventure path that somebody's not playing. And so I'll play
I've got a
devil's
few that
advocate
say, fuck.
a bit and say that one of the best things for our success has been the amount of people that enjoy Paizo, coupled with the fact that we all run an AP by Paizo that is done by less than 5 people.
Yeah, for real.
And
If you like the lore of Galarian, you're going to have to listen to a different podcast in order to kind of get that full picture.
Well, and I also think that part of why there's fewer Paizo podcasts is because it's a harder system to run as a GM, and it's a harder system to, I don't want to say it's harder to make engaging, but because there are so many like layers of rules and like conversations that need to happen throughout playing that game that aren't necessarily narrative conversations, you know, it can turn some people away. It's way easier to podcast in 5e because you can pretty much just rule of cool every aspect of 5e.
in 5e, you don't hit what we've all hit, probably besides Tyler, who is 100% focused on rules over there. But we've run into the rules, like the people that actually do listen for the rules and the people that listen for the story, and the dichotomy there. And that exists with Paizo podcasts. That is a unique thing to Paizo podcasts versus 5e podcasts.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's listening for the rules of a 5e podcast.
No,
like
right,
all the big
right.
ones, that's like never about like the crunch being the selling factor. It's
And so I think
look at this great story we're telling with our friends.
right,
You know?
you get mad props in the Paizo verse for being able to do story and rules, because I think everybody recognizes that the systems that we play are difficult rules wise. They're more. They're about 30 times more than 5e. And so that's one of the things. Like, I think a lot of us are lucky that we, barring you, Adam, like a lot of us grew up on a, first edition or 3.0, 3.5, where the rules are there. And so I've never played 5e. I've always played Pathfinder. And so I knew the rules. So I wanted to run a podcast in Pathfinder. The APs are phenomenal at Paizo. I mean, I think you can all echo that, because we're all running an adventure path instead of a homebrew. Not to say homebrew is not great. I would love to see more homebrew actually in the Galarian setting, though, because I think that's so integral to what Paizo is. And my last real big thing that really makes me a Paizo supporter versus a Wizard supporter, and I don't follow Wizards as much. I don't know what they're doing for this, but I know 100% that Paizo writes inclusivity into their products. Yes. It's in there, and it's an integral part of it, and they almost take the stance where it's like, if you're against this, just don't play our stuff. And that's a bold stance to take in the gaming community. And I love them for that, because I think if you want to foster a community of people that embodies what your game is about, you need to make your game inclusive. You need to do that. And Paizo has been doing that for years, and they get mad props from me for doing that, because, I read stuff, and you have iconics that are of all walks of life, and it's just so refreshing to see. Now, I don't follow Wizards enough to know if they're doing that, but I do know that I don't hear about it as much.
Damn straight.
Well, I'm going to echo something that Swanee is saying in the chat, and 2E was a big chance for Paizo to really kind of draw that line in the sand, And in Wizards, to their credit, they have a very inclusive image that they cultivate. So, whether you buy into that or not, I'll leave that for you to do. I'm not here to disparage Wizards as a company, but there is a much, much, much stronger connection with Paizo to the people that use Paizo products. You know what I mean? There is a almost mainline connection. They make themselves so available to all their customers, like PaizoCon being, I just want to talk about it real quick. Adventurum, this is your fault. That's all I'm going to say. But this online PaizoCon that they did, so many key people in their company opened themselves up to an AMA where you had this opportunity to legit pick their brains about what they do, what their thought process is. There was none of this kind of intentional putting up a wall of mystique that you can't talk to me because I'm one of the main people of this company. It was they're all just players too, who are also writing a game for us to play.
And I can tell you 100% they're that beyond the veil of being online. Steve and I went to PaizoCon last year when it was live in Seattle, and Eric Mona sat down and ran us through a 2E scenario.
Cool.
He was like, "Oh, I'm relieving you. I'm hopping in." Eric Mona hops in and awesome. and is running the delve things outside of the society scenario booth or the society scenario room, and it was you could talk to any of them. You could get a drink with Jason Bullman at the hotel bar if you fucking wanted. If he liked you enough, he'd buy one for you.
Yeah,
the whole crew is just phenomenal, good people. Yeah. And that's why they're so accessible in any form.
Jason Boltman would pop on Twitter and be like, "All right, who wants a character background?" And then everyone would get on that tweet, and he'd give everybody who tweeted a character. He just went for it. Yeah. That's cool to see from somebody developing something that masses of people consume.
Well, okay. We need to move on to another question.
Yeah, let's hit another
Question number
man.
2.
Yeah, we
Number
have a
2.
lot.
It only took us 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh man! All right,
Sounds
we're gonna have
about
to be
right.
quick. We're gonna have to be quicker on our responses
It'd
here.
be quicker
so,
than that.
Yeah. All right. I think we can be quick on this. Who has your favorite NPC voices as GM, and why? This is coming from Big Mood.
Yeah.
I got my answer. If we're talking the 4 of us, it's Bright, dude. Adam. That's such an impressive. It's not even like the timbre of the voice. It's just the fact that you constantly had that cadence of talking. That was super impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. It somehow spoke to the way my brain connections work, and I was so able.
That's
to
not a good thing.
I know, but it worked out really good in this situation. Bright was a super fun character to like dig into and just roll with, and like I didn't have to do anything with the physicality of my voice, right?
Yeah.
Which was nice that it had a really standout persona without having to like strain any of my vocal muscles or like remember an accent or any of that. It was just this was just the way this character talked.
This character talks like this, and this is the way he talks, and he talks like this.
I talk like this because this is how I have to talk, because I can only communicate in ways that make sure that you understand every point that I have.
So wait, is this our favorite voice to add? NPC voice to do, or our favorite player's voice?
Hey, it's your question.
I took it as favorite NPC voice of the crew, so I went with. I just think Bright was a standout to me.
Bright, and I agree with Griff on that. Bright was good. God, I can't remember the name of the character in Outpost Zed, the cat for Adam. God, I can't remember his name. Anyways, me personally, as far as like my own voices, I've always had fun with my monster voices. My monster voices are always my favorite voices to do, 100%. And they hurt my vocal cords like no one's business, right? But I mean, like between my dragon, my goblins, and being able to say, "Hey, this is my adolescent." Prepubescent dragon. Yeah, like
guys.
I do really like doing monstrous NPC voices. I do, even when it comes down to like somebody casting a spell in demonic. I love getting guttural. Part of that's because of my history as a vocalist in a screamo band.
There you go. Let's hear a yell. Come on.
Can we get a taste?
What do you want? My goblin sounds like this.
Say
that's a pretty good goblin.
Do a screamo. Shut the fuck up. Get out.
Shut the fuck up. Get out.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of range there, man. That's good.
Yeah. I love monstrous voices. So it's my favorite.
For Griff, for you, it's well, for me, my favorite voice is a tie between two of yours, which is either Horace or the Rat Merchant.
Oh yeah. Those are like
fuck it, Max.
Yeah.
You want to buy some for Losco over here? Come on.
It's just so effortless, like, because like a lot of that kind of accent is, I mean, a lot of it is how you say the words, but more of it is the words that you're using and like the syntax and everything. And so like, and you just make that sound so effortless. So that was a solid one. And then of course Horace. I mean, that's your Weldy, right? Like that's.
Yeah, I mean he's my baby. He's coming in book 4, baby.
Yeah,
man. Shouts out Weldy too.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I love
Weldy.
Well, the question was not my voice as a GM, a voice that I had to put on.
Hey guys, I changed just a little bit about my cadence, and now I'm Weldy.
It's like basically I had that extra beer before we started, And,
just like leaned into what was already there.
Yeah.
Hold on, can I give my favorite Allard voice real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Allard's the undead head on the roulette table.
Oh, dude.
Solid.
In the Golden Goblin.
I don't even remember what I did.
Oh, it was fantastic. You were rolling on the table for insults and just
I don't know. I don't know if the
so much
insults were like written, like they flowed so easily. I was like,
fucking
oh
great.
shit.
They had written out roll a table 1d12, and then they just gave like a topic for each roll, and then I just went with those.
Oh, it was
Nice.
so good.
That's a
So
cool
my
way to do. That's a cool way to
it.
do a table, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
I liked it. It was
The table of insults.
yeah.
I just
Here's
kept
the
rolling.
thing. Yeah,
I think I
here's the
rolled
thing
like
you need to
3
find
times.
wrong with the person and insult them about.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
I just kept rolling race on like I think I rolled race like 3 times. So I was like, I don't have any more things that I can do.
Well, you know, Paizo is so inclusive, and
Wow. I think they meant ancestry. It was just first edition.
right.
Oh man.
All right, next question.
We got
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
do
man.
it.
All right, that was good. Good job on the short answers there. Next, we got one from Tech Deck Shrek Peck.
That's BP.
Yeah, that's BPT for all of you who actually know him.
Thematic name. As
And this
usual.
one, I'm asking this one because it's going to just be to one of us. Tyler, why do you still allow Ted to be responsible for anything?
Oh God, I don't know. I'll tell you what. Just a little bit of a story about Ted as a player. I've been playing the longest with everybody in the group that I play with, except for Ted. Ted was the newest player that we brought in, but he so thoroughly broke every RPG I've ever seen him do anything with that I was like, yeah, this is your system. Come on in. And as I started to see him role play, and boy, if you guys are caught up on anything that we're doing, the next 2 episodes, you're going to see some real involved Ted shit.
Why don't you tell our listeners who Ted plays?
Ted plays in Extinction Curse Savatri Sayana, who is he always plays female characters. Not always, Ted. I know not always. But his favorite characters are hypersexualized female characters. And it's really niche. It's super specific, and maybe is it a little offensive? Sure, but if it's offensive to you, go listen to another podcast. Ted, and this isn't televised, so I can say this. The last full campaign that we played, it was very common for Ted's character and David's character to be sleeping in the same quarters, and like one time I had a night raid on an inn that they were staying in, and they made sure to let me know that, oh, we were having sex in the middle of that, so at the moment we're all naked, so none of us have armor on, so take the armor off, or AC bonus,
or let me hastily don.
But no, I love all my guys, and they all bring something different to the table. And
that might be something to like bring on and talk about, because you have a guy who's playing a girl, and Michael is playing a girl on my podcast, and
yeah, that's a good topic.
That would be interesting.
That's a good topic.
I have 2 girls on my podcast.
Yeah, you have 2 girls on your
Actual
podcast. That's
females.
more than we have.
Real females.
You can bring them on, have them talk about it.
We have one.
Yeah,
That's true.
You did it.
I don't know if it 100% counts, and I think Emily would agree with me on this. She's got bigger balls than most of the guys on your podcast.
That's
Was said in the first episode.
It was.
Was said in the first
It was
episode.
maintained for 70
Yeah.
episodes thereafter.
I think she's validated the point. All right, next question. We're going to go another one from Bipolar, but for real, but for real, guys. I think this is already asked somewhere. But do you remember your first character, and can you give a brief description?
yeah.
Griffin, go.
I've definitely answered this somewhere, but my first Pathfinder character was a Gripply Zen Archer monk that our buddy Ten Lawn Gnomes in the chat, Eric, ran me through a society scenario with, and and he's writing in now that he was a pain in the ass. Yes, a Zen Archer monk is a pain in the ass, but I had some fun with it. But my first actual played out character was a bard in our Skulls and Shackles campaign, and I think I played him to level 11 or 12, and was a water singer bard. So in a piratey campaign, he could control water and did some shenanigans with that, but for the most part was just a buff monster. And that's kind of how I either like to play the beat stick or the buff monster. I don't have a lot of in between. Like as a GM now, I could play like a wizard and just do that, but like I kind of enjoy playing like the big dumb character or the like, hey, I'm giving everybody a +7. So like, get off my dick if I'm not hitting in combat.
Helping,
I'm helping, and I have all the skill checks. Like that's what I tend to enjoy. Either side of that coin, just as a player, and fortunately, I get to play a lot. So that's where I'm coming from.
Hold on, I gotta point this out. Eric's pointing out that he let you take a +1 to charisma. Because
Gil Swim talked with this voice for the entire campaign. We had how far did we make it, Eric? Like 4 books, and then and I was the captain of a pirate ship, so I was.
Is this your Griswold voice too?
Yeah,
this is also my Griswold voice. I've used this voice before. It's also when we get to book 5 of Carrion Crown, there's also a character that I introduced in book 2 that has this voice. So it's one of those voices I can kind of just turn on, and it's one of my favorites.
Completely different person.
It's just easy to do.
I might have a new favorite NPC voice.
No shit, right?
That'll be I'll do that as my backup for hideous tomfoolery as well. I'll make him an operative. I'm sneaking around, and I think I'm about to hack this computer.
Look here on the corner, right?
But he's gonna be like a slug man. So he's gonna be like, this is how slug people talk. I'm not really sure if you're interested in that, but my whole planet kind of talks like that.
This is just how I translate. Okay.
Am I speaking common wrong?
All right. Allard, have you got a chance to play a character?
Yeah, I've played a few characters. My first character was just kind of like a poorly misconceived ranger because I gave him intelligence instead of wisdom, so he wasn't able to cast spells. And then I was like, oh, the arcane archer looks cool, prestige class. I have to take wizard to get into that, and then I died before I could get close to being an arcane archer. But the first character that I really like understood in the realm of like role playing and mechanics and stuff was called Koshtu, and he shows up in I brought him back for our podcast because he dipped out on Rise of the Rune Lords, but the card casting Magus Kitsune.
We've talked about this character.
Dude,
yeah,
those fucking card casters, man.
The fucking card casters are dope, and like I really like the Kitsune like switching. I gave him the ability to actually go into 100% fox form, and he had 3 tails by the time when I brought him in and stuff. So like that was the first one where I like really understood what it was to build a character within the lore and within just kind of with a backstory that was fleshed out.
Tyler, they say you never get to play.
I mean, that's not entirely true because every time I play, I die.
Okay.
I've been DMing for so long that I don't understand player caution. I just don't get
You
it.
just want to get into it, right?
Fucking, you jump into combat and oh my god, attack of opportunity, I'm dead. I've got probably my favorite. I've got a few, but my favorite is Uzmez was a goblin gunslinger for Skulls and Shackles that probably lasted for all of 6 sessions. But he was such a fucking wild card, and David was GMing that game, and I threw him off so many times. I loved it. It was so much fun. I love guns.
I love guns.
In the table RPG.
I'm Uzmez, and I love guns.
It's really funny. In real life, I am super anti-gun, but in my tabletop RPGs, I love guns.
But I have a revolver in one of your games.
Yeah, obviously. It has to be the 6-shooter that you just rotate the revolver.
Fine.
Yeah.
But be a Gripply and do it with your tongue.
I can do that.
I would always
I have a
multi-class
10-foot
into
reach
Alchemist
on top of my range of my gun.
I would always multi-class into Alchemist for Pathfinder First Edition and take the tentacle limb.
Oh, nice.
So that I could reload my gun with the tentacle. I love doing that.
Dude, I like the Alchemist class.
Yeah. Oh, Alchemist.
Me too.
We'll talk. We'll
I think
probably talk
I
about
think
mechanics
most
later.
GMs are probably going to be drawn to Alchemist just because it's a tinkering class. You know what I mean?
There's just so much behind it that it can be.
And like you have to like understand it to make it work. You know what I mean? Like
There's
you have to dig in and like get it. You know,
you have to understand that your magic isn't on a real spell list, and so you're kind of fucking gipped.
Yeah, and it's the only class that you can do and bluff a bomb into somebody's hand and have it blow up right on them.
It's the only one you can pull a Fallout 3 and sneak a grenade into someone's pants.
It's like,
yeah, man.
Oh, you have a bomb in your hand. Bye.
Oh, man. We'll probably get into rules mechanics in one of our other happy hours, but holy shit, the Alchemist could take an entire 2-hour conversation from First Edition.
You're right.
And then pull in Second Edition. There you go.
Yeah.
My first character was also a ranger, but was a monster hunter ranger, so kind of like a Van Helsing type archetype. It was during Curse of Strahd. Zach ran that specifically so I could play a character, and he did a great job with it. But I was such a dick. I was such a dick. I played the edgelord witch hunter in a Curse of Strahd gothic horror game, you know what I mean? So like the whole time I was like, fuck this place. This, Barovia sucks. All these people suck.
My ranger was just a sociopath. He was wearing like 4 necklaces of Lamashtu and just chilling around town, just like, what's up?
You guys ever wonder if your friends forced you into the GM role because you're a terrible player?
Maybe.
I'm just asking.
That might be the case.
I'm just asking.
That could be. Yeah.
It could be the case. Tom was his name. And the thing is I just like, he figured out pretty quickly that like none of the problems that were happening in the Barovian Valley really mattered because like we were all just in a place that intentionally sucked. Like that's the whole deal with Curse of Strahd is, Strahd is this vampire that is basically in control of this little pocket of the universe, and you're there, and so it all sucks. Like it all sucks, and like being a monster hunter, I figured that out pretty quickly, as a character, not just as a player, but as a character, and that was just where I went with it. So I think I kind of frustrated Zach a little bit, but it was a really fun campaign, and like he bought into it and made it really like count for me. So it was, I appreciate it. That was like my chance to like play a character,
Speaking of Zach, and I think this would be a great topic for us in a future episode, which I think we should just close out on talking about what other topics we should talk about in the future. But
let's just talk 20 minutes about topics we should talk about.
Why not?
We're going to talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to preemptively talk about what we're talking about, folks.
I love the player GM, like, and this is part of my style as a GM, but the adversarial role that GM player relationship has. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because you probably edit this sort of shit out, but I feel like you and Zach probably have the most adversarial role in your podcast, Adam.
I mean, yes.
I mean, he's not an android, so.
I mean, I can say, like, on my end for sure, my rules adversary is Swanee. 100%. Right. Like if Swanee peaks up for anything, I'm like, all right, fine, I'll shut up. What do you have to say? Right.
That's Josh for me. He is the one who's going to call me on any kind of like fuck up that I make. He'll get me on it. Which is good. You need that. You need that as a GM. You need
absolutely
somebody to keep you honest.
Word. I wish my players would read the rules enough to call me on shit.
Oh, player call out.
Player call out. You guys got a decent GM call out earlier. So I guess good.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, Haley's that for me, obviously. I mean,
it's natural.
Everybody knows the rules somewhat, but Haley, like, playing a very, very rules heavy class, like a class that like I would not build an NPC for, like fuck occultists for real for trying to jump into that outside of level 1, leveled all the way up. But because she does that, like she's very, and I ask her to be, which she's amazing about it, but she's very on all of the rules for every single thing her class could do, which is why I always am like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Get it out of my game table.
Oh, yeah.
Swizz, standard action summons. Get out. You're not a summoner. Get the fuck out of here.
Stop it. Stop
Get
it.
out of here.
Just
Stop
stop
it.
breaking my action economy.
I hate it.
I didn't think
Swift
about
action?
this thing. I didn't think about this thing that your character could do, and I did not prepare this encounter for that. And so shut it down.
Yeah.
Guess what? Stop touching items or I'm going to make them all tell you you're ugly.
No, GM call out there. Y'all probably drop that one.
Right? Yeah.
For me, it's probably Eli because he wants to incorporate like things that aren't rules sometimes. Like, dude, I'm sorry. There's a rule for how hard it is to climb this wall. I'm sorry.
But what
you thought
if?
you could do it? But no, it's good because like it that makes me think of the rule of just like letting your players and like build the world along with you instead of just building the world yourself.
Right.
And so like I always come back when we get into a little, not really arguments, but we can tell that we disagreed upon something. I usually try and come back and make a compromise in the.
You have to, like, you know, all joking aside, and the whole like animosity between GM and players, like you play that up to create some tension at the table. Like that's you know you have to do that as a GM. You have to be the
Tension
enemy.
for the listeners, man.
Well, for the listeners, but also like
I'm
you know,
a big ass softy.
You have to be the enemy that the players at the table can join together in hating. You know what I mean? Like you have to like kind of play into that role of being like, okay, these players need to group up together. I'm going to give them a common cause or enemy to like rally against, you know, and you got to do that. But at the end of the day, we as GMs, like we have so many grand ideas for the characters that are our table. We don't really want them to die, but the threat of that has to be persistent and real, because otherwise the stakes aren't real and the story doesn't carry as much weight.
Well,
You
I
know
mean,
what
just link it to exactly what we were talking about earlier, where we play Pathfinder and not 5e.
Yeah,
The
and
threat of
Exactly.
death is much more present in all of our podcasts. And even you, Adam, where I'm going to throw shade on Starfighter because it's not really easy to kill anybody.
It's so
but
hard.
It is hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
So
Like,
hard.
it's still-
I
it's still-
tried my fucking damnedest.
I know you have. I know you have.
Listen to the episodes where you really
Where you
tried your
tried,
hardest
and I
to
was
kill
like,
him.
"Oh, buddy, you're trying. Oh, he's trying."
Oh, he's trying.
Oh man,
But-
that's
but
so
still.
opposite for 2e. I accidentally killed PCs in second edition.
2e
man.
is the most brutal system I've
so
fucking
brutal.
played.
Right?
You know,
so
it's like,
hard.
Don't have a
Scared.
story arc, man. You're gone, dude. You have the same dying mechanics basically as 5e, but way worse. Now there's a wounded mechanic that ruins
Yeah.
your life.
When you come back up, you're just worse off.
You just get sat on, and nobody remembers hero points, which are supposed to
Oh, God.
balance the whole system.
I'm trying so hard, and I've only recently started giving them out that my players started looking at me like, "Are you okay, man? Like, have
All
you
right,
had
all
too
right.
much to drink?"
I'm gonna pause this because 2E is a definite like whole episode.
Oh, yeah, man.
yeah.
Oh,
We'll,
yeah.
we'll get to that. I think we gotta get to another list of questions. We got like 15 minutes left, and we got
All right, yeah,
quite
I'll
a few.
Do
Let's
it.
do one more.
Do it.
All right. So I like this one because it's different. 10 Lawn Gnomes Eric ask, what are 2 rules for players and or characters at your table? Like what are 2 like hard and fast, if you're gonna play at my table, this is what you gotta do. I'm gonna start with Tyler this time.
If you're going to write me a backstory, I will give you benefits. My players are gonna fucking cock their eyebrows real hard at me, but I know you're getting shit. Okay, guys, just be patient.
They don't believe you. I'm
I
gonna
know
go
they
and tell
don't.
you. They don't
I
believe
know
you.
they don't. The other one is that if you don't understand your character fully, get the fuck out of here and try again. Sorry. Like I've been playing for too long to like I have to worry about all of the base level rules and how they tie into encounters, and it's your job to plug your character's rules into our situation. And all my players are great at that. They know that's what I expect, so I don't have to worry about it.
Know your character.
My group, but know your fucking character, both from an RP standpoint and from a rules standpoint. But most importantly, from a rules standpoint, don't bog my game down. And you know, it's really funny. I know, like this last session, it's about to go up. I did something to my characters. I dipped my toes into Sundering in second edition, and shit, guys, I did not do enough research.
Oh man,
Full disclosure.
Think about that.
I can only imagine.
Right?
The amount of tags that you got to search through to make that work.
Fuck, it's crazy. But I'll tell you what. After it was all said and done, it ended up with one of the best moments of RP we've ever had. So that's all I have to say. But
I think that like Pathfinder, their rule system in general is good to follow for podcasts and to like publish, because they ground what the characters can do in reality more so, and it feels more rewarding when you can pull off something based on the rules that ground them to that reality.
So speak more to that, Allard. What are 2 rules for you at your table that they gotta abide by?
Shit, I don't know if I have any hard and fast rules. Yeah, Eli just popped in. I make them journal after every episode. That's probably the only thing.
That's a rule. That's a thing that they got to do, right?
Just do it because it's going to help you. It's going to help us, and maybe it'll be interesting for somebody else to read down the line. Besides that, I just upon character development, I want them to, instead of trying to make the character and class of their dreams, make the character and class that fits with the story that we're about to jump into.
Yes.
And I, being the least experienced GM out of all of us, I haven't had to impose too many rules, because this is my first group and this is the first campaign that I've ever ran. So
you ain't played with randos yet.
I haven't played with randos yet. I haven't had to have
play with randos. Then come.
As long as you have friends, don't play with randos.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So my answer, and then we'll get to Griff's answer. For me, it depends a lot on who I'm playing with. So if I'm playing with the crew, with the STF crew, the rules that they understand is that, you know, your level ups, all of your character choices, they got to have a narrative purpose. You know, you got to narratively explain to me why your character is taking that choice. You know, and that's just something that I've done for a while, and it's something that I think just kind of embellishes the game a little bit. You know what I mean? You become so much more attached to your mechanics from a character perspective, because you chose that, because this new skill, this new ability, it means something to your character. And you got this ability because you learned something from what happened, you know, through the whole grind of the previous level. Second rule is, I will echo you, Tyler, that you got to make a character for the campaign you're running. You know, I'm going to give you the details that you need to know about this adventure, you know, and it will be loose enough that you can have plenty of options, you know, but what I need you to do is make a character that has a reason to be a part of this adventure. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have a reason that you're connected to this adventure and why you're there, you know? And outside of that, the rules are the rules. Like, those are the 2 rules that I write at the table. The rest of it is the CRB. You know what I mean? Like,
True. Yep.
The other thing, I guess, is that we're going to pretty much hold to that as the final ruling on things. You know,
we get to do that as Paizo players. We get to do that.
It doesn't.
Otherwise, I would always rule in your detriment.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, roll advantage. Roll 2 dice. Roll.
Don't
I
get me
don't know,
started
just
on
roll
the
2 dice.
mathematics
Yeah.
on how that's so fucked up, Adam.
Yeah.
Advantage and disadvantage is a mathematical clusterfuck. I'm not going to. Sorry. I'm done.
Griffin.
So I'm going to start with the 2 rules that I said at the beginning of the HLP. They weren't rules, but they were boons. And then I'll end with like my actual final rule. So when everybody created their character and when they create backup characters, my 2 rules are play an archetype that's interesting. And by that, I mean, don't play the optimal archetype for the class. Play an archetype that, because Pathfinder First Edition is so full of options. Play something that's interesting. I'm not creating a killer game. I'm playing an adventure path, and by virtue of that, like, you should be able to hit it with almost any archetype and be okay.
That's
So
a 1E rule if I've ever heard one.
Yep. So play an interesting archetype. And the second is give me a backstory that ties in. And it has to tie in. And so from the get-go and every character they make, I let them roll a D4 if they have an interesting archetype and another D4 if they have a good backstory. Those 2 D4s, I let them add to their stats. After they've done a 20-point buy, I say, okay, you rolled a 4 and a 4. You can put 1 from both die into any stat. And so you have a maximum of +2 to 4 stats. So that's the incentive I give. And I play a high-powered game because I don't think there's a single encounter that I haven't buffed. I mean, you wouldn't if you're playing 1E with more than 3 players, Allard.
Yeah.
you would be buffing encounters.
I'm playing 3-5.
Yes, exactly.
With 3 people.
Right.
And my final rule for people that are playing at the HLP table in a long-term campaign is you got to take a leap of faith with me. You have to, because for this 8 months of storyboarding and for all of this background work to work, you need to be able to take a leap of faith with me. You need to put your character partially in my hands. I'm not going to make decisions for you, but I am going to make twists in the campaign that focus on your character. And you have to be okay with that. And if we were playing a game at home at the table, I would say, everything is going to be run by you. But because this is a podcast, not everything is going to be run by you. And that's the way it's going to work, and you're going to be okay with it. And everybody has bought into that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's fun for a player when the GM surprises them about something about their characters.
Exactly. And I think that's the only way you can get like genuine surprise at a recorded table. It's like 100%. You really gotta be pulling this shit on your players. Right. At the end of the day, like I'm not doing it maliciously, but I'm doing it so that
you're giving them a fucking hero arc, like
exactly.
You have to suffer to become a hero. Like that's just classic writing.
And there's going to be plot beats that happen that are beyond your control. Yeah. Unfortunately, you gave me a backstory. I played with it. That's
right. That's where
it ends up.
All right. So that leads me into, well, we have 2 questions left, but one's a discussion question, and then the last question is going to be a rapid fire question. So the discussion question comes from Kyle.
Nice.
Who plays Crow. Yep. On the Dice Crisis. He asked, and this is a broad question, so let's try to keep it together here. What are each of your long-term goals and dreams as a TTRPG GM?
Oh boy.
Oh man, like straight up, like actual life goals as a
no.
I
think in relation to us being the GMs of a TTRPG, what is your GM goal for what you're doing now? In this project?
Got it. Let my players become very attached to their characters and then kill them.
Okay, great. I'm gonna just leave it there. Next, Allard.
My goals are I want to try to run them through a gamut of emotions that their characters might go through based on the choices that they make. And I believe that the more they feel and how their characters are feeling in the story will make it be that much more interesting for an audience person to listen to. So I'm trying to work with what they've given me in their characters and also twist it up as much as I can in the GM background story mode that makes sense with the story and with the details that they've provided, to where they don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but it's going to affect them and give them like morality plays to see what their character are going to do.
Okay, Griffin. Good answer, Allard.
I want one of them, at least in recorded media, to finish the hero's journey. And my goal is about 4 episodes away.
Oh, nice. Oh, got chills. My goal is to deliver a game that's equal parts laugh, cries, and cheers. You know, like that's the trifecta that I'm trying to balance.
Success so far, man. I can't tell you how.
Real.
I don't cry when I listen to media, but you got me on your epilogue, man.
Cry?
Yeah, he got me. He did.
That's fucking awesome.
And I haven't had a chance to scold you for that yet, but fuck you, Adam.
You got to listen to the shows, folks. If you're coming in from YouTube, sorry.
Like, there's some content that you need to check out. All right, our final question, and each of you can only answer with the one-word answer to this question. No explanation, nothing. This is a crew call-out question.
All right.
This is coming from Tech Deck Shrek Peck BPT. Which of your players would you consider to be the biggest troll? Tyler.
Oh, fuck. That's a trick question. Go to
I
somebody
said
else.
One word.
Oh, God damn it.
The biggest troll?
Ted.
Griffin.
Brooks.
Allard.
Eli.
For me, Heath. And that's it, guys. I think that's a wrap on our first happy hour.
There it is.
Yes. Everybody raise your drinks to honor this momentous occasion.
I'll raise my 2 empties.
We love you all. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Appreciate
I hope you guys enjoy this. We plan on doing this again. So.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll get into deeper topics here.
Yes.
This was an introductory session, and I'm really excited to talk about specifics with you guys. So we had to get this one out of the way, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Allard, do you want to sign us off?
I would love to sign us off, and I will do so by saying good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You are all the best in the world, and I can I cannot understate the fact that the community has to be one of the best parts about putting out a podcast in general, or TTRPG, a Pathfinder TTRPG actual play podcast in specific.
Yes. Here. Cheers to all of you.
Here.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Right. There it is.
You're like, get out of my house.